problem. So what Staranova does is to take this kind of descriptive findings, and she produces a sort of ranking or a description of the performance. And she says that, for instance, for the Czech Republic is performing relatively well. Actually, she says quite well. But she qualifies this because she says, yes, they're doing well, but, or maybe because exactly they're doing very few RIA, only 12 RIAs in the space of a bit more than 1 year. And these RIAs, not only they are very few, so they can concentrate the efforts, but they are done by the 3 departments that actually were selected at the beginning for being the departments responsible for the pilot project. So they are already departments that are committed to it, they are already equipped, and so it's, let's say, a biased result. For Estonia, she says the system works relatively well, in the sense that in terms of organization, in terms of also linking the impact assessment with consultation and checking different impacts, the system is working relatively well, but with the limitation that the system doesn't require to have an assessment of different alternatives. I mean, even identifying different alternatives is not mandatory. So it's very often a justification ex post of something already decided. For the other 3, the performance is weak, both because there is no skilled people, no sufficient people, but also because there is no commitment at all at the highest level. Now, what I try to do is just simply, according to my experience, to do the same. The year is different. It's 2008, between 2008 and 2009. I have screened a very anecdotal number of impact assessments in each country. It's not that I've done, I mean, this is not scientific work in terms of methodology. It's just to throw ideas on the table. Please don't keep me on the academic side on this, on the methodological side. But I would say that, for instance, Spain performance is relatively weak. There have been changes very recently. In December 2009, they introduced new guidelines. But I claim it's just a reformulation of already existing principles and mechanisms without really improving and upgrading the procedure. So it doesn't lead to any substantial improvement. For Italy as well, I would say it's weak. They chose to go for a light version of RIA. The recent system actually imagines or gives the room for many exceptions for government not to do RIA, and the end result is also dictated by a general problem of poor resources, both in terms of qualitative and quantitative. Germany, by contrast, is relatively good. I would have even put it good, because the system is there. There are all the elements to make it work well, both in terms of tools and in terms of mechanisms. But the problem in Germany is that the political system is as such that the most important thing is to have a consensus between the ministries, and so the evidence-based approach has really difficulties in finding its way. The case in the Netherlands is, I think, an example where you have something on the paper, but has been completely ignored because the focus has been put on the cost side, only analyzing very narrow specific cost, which is basically administrative burdens on business, to be very, let's say, blunt about that. So I'm just making some simplifications here. By contrast, I wanted to show the case of the European Commission. You have seen in the other countries there has been a mismatch, a gap between when the RIA was introduced and when, for instance, guidelines were introduced and better regulation were introduced. Sorry, better regulation policy. In the case of the European Commission, the situation might appear different because in 2002 there was this decision to introduce an action plan for better regulation, and if you look at the 9 communications that were issued, they cover many of the phases of the decision-making process at the European level. Impact assessment, consultation, scientific expertise, and the role of agencies, so also risk elements are there, but also then legislative simplification, then of course the implementing powers of the European Union institutions, so the comitology, and also application of community law. So there is an approach which is holistic, is comprehensive, much more than in the other states, and it unfolds simultaneously together with the introduction of the new tool, the integrated impact assessment. RIA guidelines were produced just 1 year after that, and they were revised regularly. And there is also a sort of mechanism, an institutional context that was created with the creation of the Impact Assessment Board, and also obviously the interaction between the lead DG and the inter-service consultation. And there is an effort also to involve the other institutions. So there the approach was much more integrated overall.